Thank you, Chairman Thornton. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all understand how the commission normally conducts its meetings. It is equally important that everyone treat each other and the commission with respect and civility. The commission asks that if you have a cell phone that you would please silence it or turn it off at this time. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. The complete set of rules is found in the Planning Commission agenda. Following is the order for this public hearing. Withdrawals and deferrals. The chairman will ask if there is any request to be withdrawn or deferred on the agenda. Consideration of these requests are made first. Consent agenda. The second order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda, which are those items which the Planning Commission believes are unopposed and have favorable staff recommendation. Regular agenda. The commission will then proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. Please note that the action taken by the commission today are in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision for approval or disapproval of any item and application is made by City Council. The commission thanks you for your attendance. We hope that your experience here today makes you feel like you have been heard and treated fairly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Rosinski, for that explanation of the rules. The next order of business is to address those items that are to be withdrawn or deferred. Please come forward if you have an item to defer or withdraw.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is R.J. Nutter. I'm an attorney. There are actually two items I have on your agenda for deferral this morning. First is item number 5 for Neil. That's being moved for 30 days to your November agenda to coincide with I guess a corresponding application that both have to be heard together. So that's being moved, if we could, 30 days. We're not aware of any opposition to that, so we've let the property owners and staff know, but it was on our agenda for deferral. The other item, if I could, is item number 7 for Tony D. LLC. This is an application for a rezoning for an office building. We had let the opposition know and the Civic League know the request for deferral a little over a week ago. At the time we'd requested 30 days, but I think we'll have to defer it indefinitely because the deadline would be next Friday to submit everything, and I don't know if we can accomplish all we need to accomplish in that time period. So I think an indefinite deferral would work well there. I expect we'll be back in 60 days, not rather than 30. So,
thank you.
My pleasure, sir.
The chair has also been advised by staff that there's a request to defer item number 9. Is there anyone here to speak of that? Thank you. So may I have a motion to say again? 10. Missed one. 10 is Baker Villas. I'm sorry, I missed that one. Is there someone here to speak on Baker Villa number 10? No, okay. Well, we've also been advised that that is to be deferred. So, may I have a motion to defer 5, 7, 9, and 10?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move that items 5, 7, 10, 9, and 10 be deferred.
And a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Horsley. We are ready to vote when Ed says so.
Vote's open. By a vote of 10-0, the commission has deferred items 5, 7, 9, and 10.
Thank you. The next order of business we'll address are those items that have been placed on the consent agenda. The vice chair will handle this portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This afternoon, we have 7 items on the consent agenda. The first matter is item number 1, and this is an application of TMSSR LLC for a conditional use permit, a tattoo parlor located on property 620 Village Drive, Suite D in the Beach District. Is there a representative for this application? Can you please come forward and state your name?
My name is Sarah Roland.
Great, thank you. And are the conditions set forth in the application acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Great, thank you. You can take your seat.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Rosinski to read this into the record, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Oliver. This application currently operates a training facility for cosmetic services in this particular business near Laskin Road. A conditional use permit for a tattoo parlor is requested in order to offer permanent cosmetic makeup services known as microblading to her clients. In order to do the microblading, she does need the conditional use permit for tattoos. The proposed hours of operations is 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturdays. No changes are proposed to the existing signage or the exterior of the building. In staff's opinion, the proposed conditional use permit for the tattoo parlor is consistent with the comprehensive plan land use policies for the Hilltop area, and it is consistent with the commercial nature of the surrounding properties. According to traffic engineering, the additional purpose for this location will not impact the traffic movement in this area. Prior to operating the site, the application is required to obtain a business license, and a health department must verify the business meets all requirements. For these reasons, staff recommends approval for this application. The applicant is agreeable to the conditions that have been placed. Therefore, Planning Commission has put it on the consent agenda.
Great, thank you. The next item number is number 2, and this is an application for KAPB Development LLC as applicant and owner for a conditional use permit for a hair care center located on property 2033 Fisher Arch in the Princess Anne District. Is there a representative for this? Hi. Will you please state your name for the record?
Kristen Huber?
Great, thank you. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Kwanzi to read this into the record, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair Oliver. This is a conditional use permit for a hair care center in the Princess Anne District. The existing land use and zoning is a medical office, O2 office. The applicant requests to open a beauty salon in a 15,000 square foot plus unit within an existing medical office center. As a result of the O2 office district, the beauty salon requires a conditional use permit, which is why we're listening to this today. No changes are proposed to the exterior of the building with the exception of the signage at the entrance. The applicant's site is located within the transition area. Non-residential uses in the transition area are meant to be neighborhood serving. Staff finds that the application is consistent with the recommendations for the transition area in the comprehensive plan. Staff recommends approval. Planning Commission places it on the consent agenda.
Great, thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 3. This is an application of Kudu LLC for conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales on property located at 1165 Lynnhaven Parkway, Rose Hall. Is there a representative on this application? Hi, please state your name for the record.
William Dudley.
Thank you. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Great, thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Wall to read this into the record.
Thank you. The existing site is currently developed with a facility for dry cleaning. The applicant desires to purchase the property for a used car sales business. Therefore, a conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales is requested. No auto repair is proposed at the site. No changes are proposed to the exterior of the building other than repainting of the mansard roof line from purple to green. A 22-foot common access easement exists along the front of the property along the Lynnhaven Parkway right-of-way. Due to the limitations of this easement, the applicant will not be able to display cars in this area. The asphalt surface on the south side of the building is proposed to be expanded to create additional display area for the vehicle sales. As required by the zoning ordinance, display area landscaping will be required to be installed. The existing non-conforming freestanding sign will be replaced with an 8-foot tall monument-style sign with a brick base. The application for motor vehicle sales is generally compatible with the surrounding commercial uses and provides an opportunity to bring the property more into compliance with landscaping and signage standards. In general, the installation of the required plantings and the removal of the non-conforming signage not only improve the aesthetics of the site, but will also bring the property in line with today's current requirements. Staff recommends approval, and the conditions are acceptable to the applicant. So therefore, we have placed this item on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 4, and this is an application of William and Christine Hickey as applicant and owner for a change of zoning B2 Community Business to R20 Residential on property located at 500 Davis Street in the Kempsville area. Is there a representative for this application? Hi, how are you? Could you
Good.
please state your name for the
My
record?
name's William Hickey.
Thank you. And are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Weiner to read this into the record.
Thank you, Mrs. Oliver. This is a rezoning from B2 Community Business to R20 Residential. City records indicate that the single-family dwelling on the property was constructed in 1950. In 1968, most of the properties along Davis Street were rezoned RD1 Residential from RD1 Residential to B2 Community Business. At that time, the residential use on the site became legally nonconforming. Over time, Davis Street has transitioned from residential uses to a mixed industrial and commercial uses. The subject site is one of a few remaining residential uses on the street. The applicant purchased the property in October 2015. Recently, the applicant attempted to refinance their home. During the process, it was brought to their attention that the property would need to be zoned residential in order to qualify for a government-approved mortgage. Based on this, the applicant is requesting a rezoning of the property from B2 Community Business to R10 Residential. We think this should be put on the consent agenda, and staff has recommended approval.
Great. Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 6. This is an application of Courthouse Area Charity for a conditional use permit, assembly use, on property located at 2849 Princess Anne Road in the Princess Anne District. Hi, how are you?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name's Les Watson. I'm a local attorney, and I represent the applicant. We've reviewed the conditions and find them perfectly acceptable, and we appreciate being considered on the consent agenda. And I'd also like to add that it has been a complete pleasure to work with the staff in the planning department throughout this entire application. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Edmund to read this in.
Thank you. This is as was announced, a conditional use permit application for assembly use. This is a property that's on Princess Anne Road. It's a 1-acre site. In 1968, a conditional use permit for the relocation of Princess Anne Lodge number 25 to this site was approved by City Council, and the applicant's architect evaluated the existing building and found that structure is not suitable for reuse, and therefore the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing building and build a new 8,000 square foot building for a variety of assembly uses, and is proposed to be moved more to the rear of the site off of Princess Anne Road, not far from the courthouse area. So a new use permit is required for that reason. This proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan's vision for Princess Anne Commons, and the lodge plans to offer meeting space for various organizations which will further community engagement opportunities and gatherings. The proposed conceptual stormwater strategy has the potential to successfully comply with all the stormwater requirements, which will have to be further evaluated as they move forward with their plans, if this is approved. And the Transition Area and Interfacility Traffic Area Citizens Advisory Commission was briefed about this on September 7th, and no issues were raised. Consequently, staff recommends approval, and we recommend putting it on a consent agenda.
Thank you. The next matter is agenda item number 8. And this is an application of the Cavalier Golf and Yacht Club as an applicant and owner for a discontinuance and closure and abandonment of portion of Cardinal Road in the Lynnhaven district.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach attorney representing the applicant. We appreciate being on the consent agenda. All 6 conditions as recommended in the staff report are acceptable to us.
Great,
Thank
thank you. Is there any opposition to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chairman has asked Commissioner Redmond to read this into the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an application of Cavalier Golf and Yacht Club for a discontinuous closure and abandonment of a portion of Cardinal Road in District 5, Lynnhaven. The applicant is requesting closure of 77,650 square feet of public right-of-way that serves the Cavalier Golf and Yacht Club. The same request to close this portion of Cardinal Road was approved by City Council on May 23, 2000, and again on May 26, 2009. However, both times the applicant failed to meet the conditions for the street closure in the allotted time frame, and therefore the applicant is required to request a closure of the right-of-way once again. Staff has noted that a number of public elements lie within this right-of-way, so an easement will be required. In other respects, however, the request is deemed reasonable in no way compromises the public interest. The Planning Commission consents to the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that was our last item on the consent agenda. I thought we were pulling it.
We're going to hear 11.
Okay.
We hear it?
Yeah, they're going to hear it.
Mr. Chairman, that was the last item on the consent agenda, and I would like to move that to approve consent agenda items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8 be approved.
Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Second with Jan Rosinski. We're ready to vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I need to disclose on item 2, 3, and 8 that they've listed Town Bank as their lender, and I'm on the Town Bank Advisory Board in Chesapeake. I have no interest in this, and we don't make the final decision. And Town Bank is not the applicant, so I will be voting.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to let it be known that item number 6, I'm a member of the board of the Courthouse Area Charity, so I will be abstaining from the vote on that one.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to support the consent agenda, but with the caveat that I'll be abstaining on agenda item number 3, Codu LLC. I'm listing a property for sale around the corner at 3336 Holland Road.
Mike?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to abstain on items 2, 3, and 8 for the same reason that Mr. Ripley so eloquently stated, as I serve on the Town Bank Advisory Board. Have no interest in the applications, but Town Bank is listed as a lender on their application.
So, Mr. Inman, you will be abstaining. I believe Mr. Ripley is just giving disclosure
sorry,
of his
yes.
notice.
I will not be abstaining.
Thank you.
I just want to disclose my interest, and I will be voting,
Thank
because
you.
we are a recommending body.
Okay, you have any questions with that, Ed?
So really, actually, the only abstentions is actually Dave and Don.
Dave on 3 and Don on 6.
Okay, everybody else is just,
They're just
Just
stating
disclosing.
disclosure. Okay.
you ready?
Yes.
Vote is open. By a vote of 10-0, the commission has approved the applications of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8 with the abstentions so noted on item 3 and number 6.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank all of the applicants who had a matter on the consent agenda today. These items will now be scheduled for hearing on the City Council agenda. The next order of business will address the remaining matters on the agenda, and I would like to ask the Secretary to call the first item, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Thornton. The first item is an application of Bret Kassar for a conditional use permit, craft brewery, and open air market on property located at 505 18th Street, District 6 Beach. Is the applicant present? If you could just state your name for the record and explain your application to us, please.
Sure. Rhett Rebold, and I'm applying for a conditional use permit to convert the building that's currently Red Flag Athletics into a small craft brewery with a tasting room. And, yeah, that's it. Oh, also, because there would be up to one food truck present, also open air, market, I guess they call it. In order to mitigate any kind of noise from generators, which I understand are a concern, I'm going to install an RV hookup, so they won't need to run generators while the food truck is there.
Thank you.
And other than that, I accept the conditions.
Okay.
In the cup.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions of Mr. Rebold? Ron?
During the informal meeting, we talked about the potential for noise and nuisance with the adjacent property owners. And there was a resident that's located to the rear of your property, where you proposed business.
Yeah.
And she couldn't stay. She had to leave. But have you spoken with everybody around, to the properties that are immediately around you, about what you plan to do and perhaps how you might mitigate the sound and create a environment where everybody can live together?
Yeah. Actually, I haven't. I mean, I've talked to some of the businesses around the area, but I haven't talked to everyone around there. I mean, I've been talking to the planning department, and we've discussed, ways to mitigate any kind of noise with, outdoor seating, that sort of thing. In fact, I think, the planner suggested an audio and visual barrier in the front to the to the west, and then also in the back to the west, and also to the north. So hopefully that would mitigate some of the noise that Kathy Owens is concerned about. I just met her. I was sitting next to her in the earlier meeting this morning.
So did y'all have a chance to talk? Or-
Yeah. I mean, we need it. It's a deeper subject than that, but yeah, I think we need to,
Would it help for you to defer this and talk with her about it and see if you can come to some sort of resolution before it goes beyond here?
I mean, within tolerances, I'm willing to mitigate it in ways that are mutually acceptable. So I'd rather not, for various reasons, put this off. But I am flexible and ways to mitigate that.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Any other questions? Mike?
I'm looking at the Google Maps and where you're going to put a new addition on the building, which is going to be on the back.
Right.
And
on
then,
the north end.
are you aware that there are a number of residences along that you back up to that, and you think that the sound attenuation will be sufficient?
Well, I mean, that they're there. I think that we're talking about two visual audio walls and maybe some landscaping being proposed in that area. Right now, it's I guess it's kind of a paper alley, which is overgrown, and actually there's some nice shade trees back there currently. So maybe that can be enhanced, or with mutual, kind of agreement with that landowner, with Kathy. I think you guys know each other.
Yeah, I just was concerned. So what are the hours of operation of the rooftop deck?
It's proposed to be open as late as 10:30 and as late as midnight, Friday, Saturday. It's consistent with, what is it, Craft Burger, I think, is open until midnight every night of the week. And Esoteric is open until midnight, Friday and Saturday night. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll, there's no one else to speak?
There are no other
So
speakers.
we can close the public hearing and discuss it amongst ourselves.
I wonder if we could get some indication of how notices were sent out to, who qualifies as an adjacent landowner that gets notice of this application?
Well, do you know who was notified, Christine?
Yes, I know that Kathy, I just spoke with her out in the hallway, and she did receive the adjacent property notification letter. She hadn't been able to access the report. She couldn't find it on the website, but we did just go over it outside. And we spoke about revising condition number 3 to more clearly include a visible barrier. And she felt comfortable working with myself and Rhett to come to a more definite design solution between now and City Council. Beyond that, she didn't have any other concerns, and she felt comfortable working with us.
Well, that really didn't totally answer my, I mean, I'm sort of concerned about all the residences that I saw from Google Earth, or Google Map, whatever, the Google Earth, what I was looking at, that are, seem to be in easy hearing distance, I would say, of this proposed rooftop deck. That's my concern, not just the one property owner that
Well,
raised
notification.
the issue.
Notification will be all properties that touch this property. And I believe we also go across the alley. So even though there's a small alley, we go across it.
Yeah.
But you're not going to go down. You're going to go across the alley, because that way, if you extended it, it would touch. But you don't go down. You only hit those properties that touch the property.
Okay, so the question is, for us to consider this application, does anybody have a major concern over the extension, the expansion on the back is where there's going to be an outdoor patio and a place to have food and beer, is that correct? That's the way that the drawing depicts that. So the second floor of that addition will be an outdoor venue. So the question to this body is, does anybody have a problem with this application subject to our staff and the applicant and Kathy, the lady behind, modifying recommended conditions number 3? If we're comfortable with the staff and the applicant and one neighbor working this out, are we at a point where we would make a motion and vote for this? If so, somebody make a motion. Dave Redmond.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the application.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Horsley seconded. We're ready to vote.
Vote's open.
Thank you, Christine, for catching up with us on that in a quick hurry. And
By a vote of 9-1,
okay, sorry.
the commission has approved the application of Rebuttal.
Pardon me. Sorry. Thank you.
Jumped the gun there. Bud.
Jumped the gun.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is an application of Waterbox LLC for a conditional use permit, multifamily dwelling and commercial marina, and a conditional rezoning B2 community business and R 7.5 residential to conditional B4 mixed use and a P1 preservation on property located at 2100 Marina Shore Drive, District 5, Lynnhaven. The representative for this application, please come forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would be abstaining on this particular matter because the applicant has an interest in some businesses that I have. So as opposed to sitting here to abstain, and this is the last item, I'll just you vote me as absent, and I'll leave.
Thank you, and enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy, and I'm a local attorney. I represent the applicant Waterboxes LLC and the contract purchaser, which is Waitzer MS LLC. And Brad Waitzer, the principal, is here with us today to answer question. You know, it's interesting sitting through the last application. This particular application is the result of over 3 years of collaboration with the community. I've only been in this for under 2 years, but over the course of 3 years, Brad and the property owner have had close to 30 meetings with folks. I've been involved personally. I counted up 17 presentations, meetings. We've been before the Bayfront Advisory Commission twice, Shore Drive Community Coalition, several meetings with Long Creek Cove and their board, several meetings with Broad Bay Island and their board. We've had several meetings with Cape Story by the Sea. We've had general open meetings. And what you have before you, the proposal includes a proffer package and a site plan that we feel is very responsive to the concerns that we heard at large from the community. And you can imagine a property that's over 18 and a half acres. There are a lot of people around this property and a lot of folks that we had to communicate with. As the was said in your informal session, it's just over 18 and a half acres combined. The redevelopment parcel, which is the piece that's commercially zoned, B2 now, that would be rezoned to B4 conditional, is the larger piece where the boat storage and the marina and the 30,000 square feet of event space and the surf riders located. And then you've got a preservation parcel, which is the undeveloped marshland to the east. What was very important to a lot of folks was the exact location of the line demarcating the redeveloped, where the development would be, and the preservation parcel. So we worked a long time to come up with a location that basically says where the development is now is where that line is. That's where it stops. No further development. We've included proffers that restrict any further development. They would allow for access at Wake Forest Road to the folks who live at Cape Story by the Sea and Cape Henry Shores, but there would be no development, no expansion of the marina, and it would protect that very important preservation area. As was indicated, just an overall big picture, the dry storage facility, which is over 55 or so feet tall, it's a large facility, that would be going away. The 30,000 square feet of commercial space, which is currently underutilized now, would be going away. What would remain would be the wet slips, the surf rider, the pool with a pool house for the marina guests and customers, and then where the dry storage and the 30,000 square feet event facility is now, that's where the 200 high-end luxury multifamily apartments would be. The original proposal, and this application was made at the end of 15 and then updated in 16, we've reduced the density by 25%. So that was one of the things that we heard from folks. So we dropped it from 261 units down to 200 units. This shows you the layout. So in dropping it, we were able to reconfigure the building so that nobody's really looking at a long, flat surface. The original proposal back in 16 would have had the apartment building. This side would have been flat along the property to the north, which is Long Creek Cove condos. So what we've done by reducing the number of units, we've been able to reconfigure that. So not only do you have that southern coastal look and feel, but you actually have a smaller footprint. Originally, we thought Surfrider was going to want to expand. They're not interested in expanding. So we've left open a spot here for 4,500 square feet, indoor, outdoor, a nice outdoor oyster bar type facility. So it really will be a mixed-use marina community. And it will be a high-end apartments. We're anticipating this won't be age-restricted, but we're anticipating older folks in the Great Neck Shore Drive corridor who want to retire and don't want to pay property taxes anymore, want to downsize. This would be a nice alternative for them. It's a great alternative if you don't want to pay real property taxes to be on the water, but you want to keep your boat in a slip on the water. So that's sort of the general of the application. Again, the southern coastal look and feel is an upgrade, obviously, over what's there now. Any additional buildings that would be put on the property would also have that same southern coastal look and feel, high-quality design. If you go back, you can see the courtyard, sort of the serpentine shape of the building. There'll be courtyards, one will have a pool, there'll be other outdoor amenities, as well as 5,000 square feet of indoor amenities. We've agreed to a proffer to put the individual HVAC equipment on the roof in a well. There were folks who were concerned about the noise and aesthetics, so it will be a very, aesthetically, it will be very pleasing and better than what's there now. I wanted to go over what we consider some of the benefits, and frankly, interestingly, one of those is the reduction in traffic generation. Some of you may have been around during the Kokomo's days, but the event space that Rick described in the meeting is 3,000 square feet of commercial. At one time, it was almost 3,000 square feet of restaurant, office, retail. It is underutilized at this point. There is event space in there, and they've discounted that. In fact, I don't think they've given a traffic generation number for the event space. So the property as it's used today is underutilized based on the square footage of space, how it's been used in the past. It is zoned B2, and so I think what staff was trying to say is the existing uses support in the 3,000s of trip generation, average daily trips. Our use, looking at the number of slips in the marina, looking at the number of apartments, would get you just over 3,000 square feet. So not a huge difference, but obviously the property isn't being fully utilized. They could have, and the property owner has an application for Kokomo's to come back and take up another 15,000 square feet. So right there, you've increased the traffic over what we're proposing. The importance there is this rezoning requires a public hearing, a public input process. Any other B2 uses, whether they repurpose the 30,000 square feet or they go with a site plan that I think staff alluded to, that's 200,000 square feet of commercial, all of those uses wouldn't have any input from the public. They wouldn't come with any of the proffers that we're proposing, and they would have many times the number of traffic or trip generation. So we feel that this overall project with the proffers, with the reduction in trips, is actually a benefit. It improves the traffic composition. You won't have loud, unsightly commercial traffic, the tankers bringing the fuel multiple times a week, especially in the summertime. The fuel tanks will go away. You won't have the tractor trailers bringing the boats in and out to boat storage. You won't have the outdoor repair facilities, which is really, if you think about it, quite an industrial and an intense use of that particular portion of the property. As I mentioned, it eliminates the noxious activities, repair, boat repair, et cetera. It improves life safety. Many of us were around when the Lynnhaven Botel caught fire, unfortunately. You've got, 500-600 boats, all made out of, mostly out of fiberglass, full of gasoline. That is a health issue. If we take away the dry storage, we eliminate that. If we take away the 3 10,000-gallon fuel tanks, we eliminate that as an issue as well. It improves the aesthetics. What's there is a, almost 60-foot big metal building. What we're proposing will be much more attractive, both with the apartments and any future development. We've also improved the river access for Cape Story by the Sea and Cape Henry Shores. Folks will be able to do, as Carolyn mentioned, they'll be able to do legally what they've sort of been doing all along, but without making any additions to that property. So we feel that this proposal, no one likes change. In this case, change is certain. The property's underutilized. It's got a commercial zoning. It could be repurposed with its existing square footage right now. The traffic would be up in the 7,000 average trips a day. What we feel is that we've been able to put together a proposal, and we've gotten the support of Broad Bay Island and in others that we've talked to, that helps reduce traffic. There's no certainty about what could happen. We know what this would propose. It increases safety, it improves and protects the valuable estuary and the environment, it enhances the surrounding property values. We think it promotes recreational use of Long Creek, and it enhances the aesthetics far more than any other alternative that's out there. As the staff report indicates, the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan's vision for the suburban area because it leads to this residential infill development and a preservation of the environmental amenities that are there now. I mean, this is prime real estate, and this really helps us to preserve a fairly large portion of it. For all of these reasons, we respectfully request that you recommend approval. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding the application.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Murphy? Dave?
Ms. Murphy, could you speak a little bit to the alternative? There was some discussion this morning that there's an approved site plan with the planning department already for an alternative that I don't know that much about it, but I'd like to hear a little about that.
Yeah, so the current property owner, Water Boxes, Gail Higgs, has an approved site plan that Carolyn's got copies of it. It's 20,000 square feet of mixed office, retail, and restaurant. The applicant at that time obtained a variance, so there's very little setback between where the building would be and Long Creek Cove, the residential properties to the north. It consists of the boat storage, incidentally, in that site plan remains. So the large metal building would stay. What would be replaced is the 30,000 square feet. 200,000 square feet. So it's two structures. You've got a 5-story structure with parking underneath and a 7-story structure with parking underneath. So it's thank you, Brad, 200,000 square feet. And that is an approved site plan that's good now as a result of the change in the statute until July 1, 2020.
And I think this morning, and if you could help confirm this for me, and the staff will help her as well, or at least help me, is that the alternative that's reflected in this approved site plan, traffic generation number of 9,214?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, so the applicant has a approved site plan for a development that's at least 200,000 square feet and 7 stories that would generate 9,200 trips a day as opposed to this plan, which generates 3,000. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, just making sure I got that right. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from Ms. Murphy? Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the next speaker, please.
Okay, we have quite a few speakers with regards to that. Our first speaker in support is C.B. Drake III. And as you come to the lectern, if you can please make sure you state your name for the record.
C.B. Drake III, and I'm in favor of the project.
Okay, that was quick. Guess nobody had questions, right? The next speaker is Harry, is it Buell?
Buell.
Okay, thank you, sir. If you could state your name for the record when you get to the microphone, please.
My name's Harry Bela.
Okay, and can you give us why you're supporting the application?
Hope I don't take too much of your time, but
Well, you only have as long as till that little red light comes on.
I've been a member of the community down there since 1999 when it was built. I watched the marina get built, I watched the community get built, and I've gone through all the pain and agonies that anyone has had. I've been the president and vice president of board of directors for 15, almost 16 years. I just resigned here a couple months ago due to, I'm going to travel to Florida. I inherited a place down there, and due to my being away, I didn't find it efficient enough for me to be here and maintain the president's spot. So I relinquished it, and now I'm doing my own thing. But I've been through every situation that is possible over the last 15 years with the marina, with our community, with the Kokomos was always a big issue. And I can say that, to my knowledge, no one has ever been hurt. No one has ever been damaged. We've had people walk through the neighborhood that the neighborhood people didn't like. We've had people park in the neighborhood that didn't like. It seems that all of that has been solved. So to see what has been there and what is there now, I can see the difference. To bring back what was there before versus what the owner wants to build now, I can definitely see the difference of where I, as a homeowner there, would like to see the new project completed. The project that could be completed, as a lady or somebody just said, if you go back to the homes along the fence line, in case you all don't know, it's about 200 or 300 line fence, and they have homes that are up to that fence, and within, from me to the bench, is going to be a building, 20, 30 feet, with the old situation going up. So if you had a home there ranging from $300,000 to $400,000, and you look out your window, you're going to see a building right there, versus seeing a marina and whatever else, or some new buildings. So those people are not going to be happy. I've been down in Florida, by the way, and I just got back Monday, so I'm not totally prepared for what I wanted to say, but I am personally going to go through every one of them homes, explain to them what's going to happen. I don't know if it'll make any changes or whatever, but those people really need to know that with the new situation, they're going to be much better off as a homeowner there versus not. You're going to have some homeowners coming up and they don't want to see the school kids get hurt. I go to that school place every morning. Not one kid has been hurt. 10 family members are there, seeing their kids get on a school bus, see them get off the school bus. Not one kid in 15 years has been hurt. So seeing a new one versus the old one is much better for the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Dave?
Mr. Bueller, do
Yes,
you plan on keeping your residents at this place and in Florida?
Yes, I have it for sale, and it's been for sale for a year, and I have a price on it that I won't budge, and no one wants to give me the money. So I look at it this way, there's 400,000 people in this country. I'm looking for one that's got a suitcase full. Nobody's come around yet.
I understand.
And when they give me my price, yes, I'll move, just like you would move if I came by and gave you a price for your house.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
And you're gonna ask anyone in the neighborhood.
You're fine.
I've had a house across the street and two down from me, they both come down $30,000 to $65,000 to give away their house. I ain't doing it. I like it.
Did you get that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bradley Waltzer.
Wait, sir.
Wouldn't expect that. Let's go.
Thank you. My name's Brad Waitzer. My address is 242 Mustang Trail in Virginia Beach. And I am the developer, contract purchaser of the property to develop the apartments. And to me, first of all, I've been doing this for 30 years now. I have never had such a collaborative process with homeowners in the area. We made something like 12 substantive changes to the plan based on the input. I understand that we will never make everybody happy because certain people in the neighborhood want one thing and certain people in the neighborhood want something else. And so inevitably, you will be choosing between two imperfect plans that will make some people unhappy. To me, there are two main issues aside from aesthetics, aside from preserving the environment, aside from doing away with oil spills, that make this particular development particularly attractive to the city of Virginia Beach as well as the neighbors. The first, it has been mentioned that the site plan that has been approved generates approximately 3 times the traffic as currently exists and as our development exists, as our development would. I want to point out that the current condition includes 0 trip generation from the Botel dry storage building. We know that that's not the case because there are back-to-back weddings there every weekend. As Lisa said, there is also an offer on the table from the former operator of Kokomo's to operate a 15,000 square foot restaurant, taking over half of the existing building. The dry storage would remain, and the traffic generated by all the other uses would remain. This would be in addition to that. The important ratio, as far as I can tell, is that the ITE traffic generation manual says that the traffic generated by 200 apartments is almost the same, within a percentage point or two, as a 10,500 square foot restaurant. So, that one restaurant alone would produce more traffic, roughly 50% more traffic, as the apartments, and you would still have the traffic from the dry storage plus a reduced size special event space, or it could be rented to another restaurant. The point is, we don't know exactly what will happen to that piece of property because of its current zoning. I feel very confident that it will be far more intense than what is there now. But our plan is the only way that the public and you and the city council will have a say of what goes on that piece of property because of its current B2 zoning. And no matter what happens, if there are 9,000 trips per day generated, it will go on that same road. It will go by the same houses. The question is whether you want roughly 3,000 or you want some multiple of 3,000. Yes, sir.
Remind you, but your time is up.
May I have a few more minutes, Mr.
Just keep it down to one.
Okay.
In fairness for the other 8 or 9 people speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Board. The second issue for me, as I can see it, is life safety. I witnessed the Lynnhaven fire. It was a 3-alarm fire in 1999. These boats are full of gasoline, besides being made of a flammable product, fiberglass resin. But they are full of gasoline. And if you just do the math, 50 gallons on average per boat, and in the winter, they are generally stored full, so you can minimize condensation. You're looking at multiple explosions over a long period of time within about 100 feet of homes, and that's exactly what was experienced at Lynnhaven. However, the homes weren't so close. Thank you. I can answer any questions you have.
Any questions of Mr. Wade, sir? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Our next speaker in support is Chris Wood.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Chris Wood. I am a lifelong resident of Virginia Beach, and I've lived in the Cape Story, Cape Henry area for going on 20 years. Not only is my home in the area, but also my business is there. I have a couple of rental homes there, as well as a commercial building with a successful real estate business and a boxing gym. So this is very important to me. I live there, I work there, and to me this is one of the most important land planning items that's come before y'all in our area since perhaps Pleasure House Point. When I was writing my comments last night, I was thinking, what if we did this in reverse? If we had a high-end residential complex and someone wanted to come in and tear it down and put in an industrial use with forklifts and boats and multiple bars and restaurants, what would the outcome be? And clearly, there would be an outroar against that. So what is currently there and what's currently the property is being used for is just not the highest and best use of the property for the community. I really can't add a whole lot to what the staff wrote up. It was a great write-up, and I agree with everything they said. I would thank Mr. Waitzer. He met with us many times, met with the community many times, and I see no reason for the opposition. You will hear something about a petition today. If you look at the petition, it was very well-intentioned, I'm sure, but it was misleading. It mentioned about the traffic. Clearly, we have less traffic. It mentioned public safety. As Mr. Waiter said, this is a much safer proposal. And so I think that that's the big issue there. And finally, I think the most important thing for me being a member of Cape Henry Shores and Cape Story is having the 5 acres of environmental wetlands and the beach protected. I've taken my kid and my dogs there for 15 years illegally, right past the no trespassing signs that have been there, as have everybody else. So having that preserved and donated to Lynnhaven River now to protect it forever is really important to me. And those are all my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Wood? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker in support is J.R. Mays. Please state your name for the record.
It's J.B. Moss. It was close.
Long A, short A.
Eli,
Sorry
yeah.
about that.
I'll be brief. I was born and raised in Virginia Beach, and I am here in support of the Marina Shores rezoning request. As a father of young children, the wetland donation protection that is promised and the new public access that's going to be provided is my major motive for supporting the project.
Any questions of Mr. Moss? Thank you, sir.
Okay, our next speaker in support is Doug DeVito.
Thank you all for your time today. My name is Doug DeVito. I am a small business owner in the Shore Drive corridor, also formerly a resident Long Creek Cove. I actually lived there for 13 years, recently sold my home there 2 years ago, and still live in the Great Neck Road area and frequent that area regularly. My family still lives in the neighborhood. I'd like to show my support for the approval of the water boxes in the Marina Shores area. The biggest difference for me is the wetlands, as previously stated from many people. It's a huge asset to the community. The access to the waterways, especially mostly for non-motorized vehicles, kayaks, canoes, and just recreational use. And the benefits that the community will receive from that is really my driving motivation for it. And that's what I have to say today. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
In
sir.
this list of vote no to rezoning, you happen to show up on here. Was your name placed on here with your approval? Or do you know anything about?
No, what I believe that is from a Facebook posting that went probably when the discussion for this first started.
Okay.
Unable to remove from that. I do not know how that works.
That's okay, but
That was
you're-
passed along to me
We
through
just
that
want to make
avenue.
sure that we want you to know you're on here, but
Yeah.
you're in favor of this
Yes, sir.
application. Thank you. Any questions of Mr. DeVito? Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, that is the end of the speakers in support. Our first speaker in opposition is Laura Maxa. If you can please make sure you state your name for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Laura Maxon, and I'm a resident of Long Creek Cove Condominiums, which is the neighborhood that is directly affected by this project. What they don't show on this screen is the one ingress and egress that goes to the apartments. It is a 24-foot wide street with no sidewalks and no shoulder. Our entrance to our neighborhood also does not have sidewalks. Our children walk to school in the dark. My daughter walked this morning in the dark to Great Neck Road, and they walk in the street. And you have to get in the other side of the road to go around these children. With the commute will be raised in the morning, the traffic will be higher at rush hours in the morning when our kids are going to school. Also, the density is an issue. These are 200 apartment units Our entire neighborhood is only 87 houses. So that's more than double the amount. I believe the traffic study for the marina is flawed because it's a seasonal practice. And the restaurant's only open during the summertime, so is the pool. Not everybody goes to visit their boat every day. I know my dad didn't when he had his there. He was there for 5 years, he never went to see it. And so it's the traffic, the safety, and the density. And I think it will decrease the value in our homes if we have this, we have been threatened with the Kokomo's and, ooh, it's going to be so bad and scary. I lived there during Kokomo's times. Kokomo's was only open Wednesday through Saturday. So how can you say there's going to be that many trips generated to a facility that's closed during the week? But like I said, it's the safety. The road already has a sinkhole in it. I don't think it'll be able to stand up to the amount of traffic and the amount of vehicles that will be going through there to build the apartments. You will still have the commercial vendors for the restaurants, as well as the staff members and the people who live in the condos. So this is why our neighborhood, well, I wrote that petition and I posted that petition. And I got 792. I do not know Mr. DeVito, but the people in Cape Henry, Cape Story, all they really cared about was their kayak launch. I care about the safety of our children, the traffic, the intersection that is there is very hazardous. And so there's a result to be backed up down Lynnhaven Drive in the morning when our children are out there standing. And for the parents who park along Lynnhaven Drive to pick up their children. It's not only my neighborhood, it is the Marina Shores apartments as well that use that bus stop. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any questions of Mrs. Maxon? Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker in opposition is Rex Wilsteria.
Yes, my name is Rex Wilshire. I'm against this, and my reason for this is basically the egress-ingress area. You've got one road leading into it. They threatened us with the back of the houses, another road, which they couldn't do. And you've got apartments. I'm sorry. You're going to have more than, you're selling their high-priced apartments and stuff. They're saying this. But you're going to have roommates. You're going to have more roommates. And there's no way they're going to be able to police that. If they come in and said this is going to be a 60 and above or 50 and above age group, we're going to hold this to that, then it might have been a different story. Or if it had been condominiums, it might have been a different story. But they're apartments, and I've seen it. We got the apartments across from us, and you can see them going down. And they don't, and so it's just, there's no way. It's just, they don't work like condominiums. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Wilshire? Thank you, sir.
Okay, our next speaker is Joan Ryan.
Good afternoon. My name's Joan Ryan, and I live in 2164 Marina Shores Drive, which is right where the traffic goes through to the marina. I am opposed to this unless there's a second road that can be built. I think that the traffic, the density of the traffic, the safety of the children should be considered. Right now, the traffic is seasonal, and also where it's boating, it's weather permitting. So it's not a constant 365-day year-round traffic. And I would like to see a second road if possible. Otherwise, I oppose it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
The next speaker didn't mark what their position was. That's Jay Leach.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Leach. I have
currently lived in the Long Creek Cove since February of 2016. Prior to moving to the Marina Shores area, I lived either in the North End or Bay Colony for the previous 23 years, commuting along Shore Drive on a daily basis. I've been a volunteer public safety professional for a combined total of 37 years, either as a firefighter or as an EMS provider. Aside from continuing to volunteer for our city as a paramedic, I'm an avid cyclist and owner-operator of a chartered boat service. So I navigate along Lynnhaven Drive and Great Neck Road all hours of the day. I support Mr. Waitzer's water boxes proposal, provided the following safety measures are mandated. One, the speed limit along Great Neck Road from Thomas Bishop Lane to Shore Drive be reduced from 45 to 35 in order to slow down the traffic on both sides of the Great Neck Bridge. Two, a traffic light and crosswalk being placed from the Marina Shores Long Creek Cove side of Great Neck Road to the Marina Shores Shops side along Lynnhaven. These items will mandate that drivers must give way to pedestrian traffic in the crosswalk. My rationale is as follows. I agree with Mr. Waitzer's letter to you all, with the following exception, and with all due respect to the hardworking city engineers, their methodology in coming up with the supposed current average daily trips along Marina Shores Drive is inherently flawed and grossly inflated, regardless of the issue with the dry slip calculation. Using this traffic engineering methodology, there would be a car coming through there every 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. I can tell you unequivocally, this does not currently happen. Residents have been making this argument for over a year, and I'm disappointed that the city did not install an actual counter months ago in order to come up with a definitive measure. In my years of experience driving along Great Neck Road and living in Long Creek Cove, this corridor continues to become more dense and thus more active. I cross Great Neck Road multiple times each day, and to say it's like playing Frogger is an understatement. Recent traffic statistics from Thomas Bishop to Shore Drive from January 1st to 2014, from January 1st of 2014 to October 5th, last week, there were 85 multiple vehicle accidents, 15 with injuries. At the intersection of Great Neck Road and Lynnhaven Drive, there were 17 motor vehicle accidents, 2 with injuries, and most notable, from September 7th to October 3rd, within the last month of this year, there have been 5 motor vehicle accidents, 3 of those involving injuries. When you look at the population density and the driving behavior, it's incumbent upon this body to treat this corridor as an extension of the Shore Drive corridor, where the speed limit was reduced from 45 to 35 miles an hour in 2010 due to increased population density and community outcry, which contradicted traffic engineering analysis. As the old adage goes, policy is often written in blood. Why must we have another tragedy like Whitney Halsey, the school teacher, or the cyclist Daniel Hirsch to occur in order to do what is prudent? The time is now for the city to be proactive instead of being reactive. I understand why traffic engineering thresholds exist. However, common sense and compromise should always prevail. The safety of our neighbors, our children are at stake. This body should mandate that speed limit be lowered, a stop sign and appropriate crosswalk be installed prior to any construction starting if this body and city council deems appropriate. Thank you for your time, and most importantly, as a volunteer for the city, I appreciate each of the time and hard work that you all put in on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Leach? I have one.
Yes, sir.
The light that you are recommending is at the intersection of Great Neck and Lynnhaven?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I've got one. Jay, is there no crosswalk
No, ma'am.
from that corner?
Nope.
Where the last speaker was talking about where the bus stop is? There's no crosswalk?
Well, there's not a crosswalk across Lynnhaven Drive, and what I'm saying, there needs to be a crosswalk across
Across
Great Neck
Great
Road.
Neck Road.
Right, to get over to the shops. So there is a crosswalk at the Cape Henry Trail, and there's a crosswalk
There's crosswalk further down, right?
At Shore Drive.
To get into the running trails.
Correct, yes, ma'am. But there's not one for the people who live in the Marina Shores area to get to the Marina Shores shops.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Leach.
You're welcome.
Okay, our next speaker has not indicated either, and that is Andrew Bond?
Yes, ma'am. Hi, Andy Bond. I live in Cape Story. And I don't know if I'm for or against. I'm for, I have no objection to what the applicant is proposing. I really like the applicant's representative's presentation. No development, we're going to protect the preservation area. Mr. Wood emphasized the protection of the area P1. What concerns me is the city. So that's why I say I don't know if I'm for or against. The application I don't have any problem with, but even in the write-up, it says to ensure protection from future development. But, and there's always a but, and this is the concern that I have, provided, however, that these activities like the dredge site, I don't remember if, or I don't know how many of you participated in the concerns about the dredging, but there is absolutely no benefit to any dredging program that is given to Cape Story. But in this proposal, the city has reserved the ability to do that. Well, we've been promised all along that P1 is inconsistent with a dredge site, so I ask you to be the bulwark against the city maintaining that ability to construct a dredge site there and just say, okay, it's P1. Oof, that's it. That would be my concern, my comment, and my request. Thank you very much.
So before you leave
Yes, sir.
the stand, so you're not opposed to the project per se, but your issue is with the dredge access to the river to use for dredge spoils.
Yeah, only, and because in this, the proffer provides the city with the opportunity to do that.
To have an easement through this property.
Yeah, and you can say, well, P1 is P1, which is completely inconsistent with the city's desire to do that, if it ever comes up again.
Any questions of Mr. Bond? Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, Commissioner.
And then our last speaker is Bret Kassar, and I believe he's changed his position.
Good afternoon. My name is Bret Kassar. I've been a small business owner in the Shore Drive neighborhood for over 25 years. I've also been a wrestling coach at Cox High School and Great Neck Middle School for over 20 years and have children who attend school nearby this development. I wanted to mention this because I'm familiar with the neighborhood and both the impact of the residential community as well as the business community. Our neighborhood was inundated with traffic, DUIs, traffic backup from Kokomo's all the way out to Great Neck Road for many years. If we have a choice between a high-end residential development and another late-night nightclub, not necessarily a food and beverage establishment, but a late-night nightclub, which they already have approval for, my vote is for the new development. I own property near the Marina Shores apartment complex. I have a lot of kids on my team that live in that complex. If you drive down Great Neck Road, the bus stops, they get off, they go to the apartment complex. I was shocked how many of our young athletes live right there. There's nothing wrong with living in an apartment. Sometimes it's a good stopping point for families in transition. So I think a high-end apartment complex in our neighborhood would be an awesome benefit, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Kassar? Thank you, sir.
Okay, we have no more speakers on this application.
Ms. Murphy, would you like some time for rebuttal?
Sure. Again, for the record, Lisa Murphy. Wanted to mention, we were on the agenda last month and we said we wanted to meet with a couple more groups and we've made some changes. One of the things that was in a version of the proffers that Kay asked us to take out was this walkway or sidewalk along Marina Shores Drive. And the reason we had to take it out of the proffers, and it's not in the version that you have now, is that it would be considered an off-site improvement and not something per state law that we could proffer. We have offered an agreement to Long Creek Cove that would have included a walkway because we would need an easement from them in order to build some sort of a walkway along Marina Shores Drive, but that is something that Brad has offered, and again, it was in the original version of the proffers, and we're willing to do that. As far as the sinkhole in the road, there is a road maintenance agreement that's part of the underlying easement, and the road maintenance agreement, I think, is a 15%, 85% split. We had also offered that as part of the redevelopment, that we would take over 100% of that, and it would just be a matter of that agreement again that I mentioned. So there were a couple of off-site improvement items that could not be in the proffers, but were things that we had offered to the Long Creek Cove Board by way of an agreement where Brad would have committed to do those things, and he is willing to do those things. As far as the management of the apartments, I know we talk about these being high-end luxury. Brad's management company is called Signature Property Management. They've won awards recently, Commonwealth at York. They are they're an excellent property management team. I mean, they win awards all over the area for their ability to manage properties, to keep them looking nice, to prevent some of the situations that were described where you have 4 and 5 people and nobody's actually on the lease. They do a credit check on every single person who is going to be living in that apartment, so they avoid all of that. I think the other issue that came up was the speed on Great Neck Road, which I don't think we can really affect. We had talked originally 2 years ago about, a light coming at that intersection. As far as I know, it's the electric is there, it's ready for light, and it's really up to traffic engineering to say whether or not it's warranted. Our understanding is, even with this proposal, it would not be warranted. And Rick can speak to this, but my understanding again is that if you put in a light that's not warranted, that actually creates more problems than it would fix. Again, I think we can address the kids walking to school with the walkway, the road maintenance. We can address that in a separate agreement. But again, they were originally proffered, and we had to take those out of the proffers. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Jan?
I have a question, and I'm not sure whether you can answer this or if Kay, you need to. So these off-site improvements that they're indicating that they can do, but that can't be put in the proffers, how could the community be assured that they would do those?
An agreement, a private agreement between the owners or the applicant and the community.
Okay.
And we have, just for the record, so you know, the current president is a lady named Lori Fry. We had submitted to her and the board a formal agreement that would have addressed several of those issues.
And do you know if the members of the community are aware of that?
I would assume that they are. My understanding from the board, and you've got a couple members here, is that there's a real split in the community. So in order to get the consensus to sign the agreement, they would have to get some kind of consensus. So that's my understanding. But we have offered it, and again, Brad is very willing to put that walkway in there.
And in addition to that, you're agreeable to maintain 100% of the road?
Correct.
Instead of the 85-15 split?
Exactly.
Dave Weiner.
Mrs. Murphy, in the, it might have been the write-up, I didn't know, are these 1, 2, 3-bedroom apartments?
It would be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, so about a fourth would be 1 bedroom, about a fourth would be 3, and then in the middle would be the 2.
Any idea what the price range of renting would be?
I'm going to ask Brad to come up for that. I know they're looking at the market, but I think the bottom-ish would be the 1,500 for the 1 bedroom, and then, on up, depending on the view, depending on the size of the unit.
Lisa is correct that we would start at about 1,500. Obviously, we'll charge as much as the traffic will bear. We are designing some units for people like my wife and myself who are looking to move down from our house. We travel, and we're in our mid-50s, and I'm tired of a house, frankly. And those particular units are likely to be over $5,000 with view premiums and some height premiums and things like that. The majority of units will be $1,500 to $3,000, but we have some reaching far above that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Ms. Murphy before we close the hearing? Thank you. So, with that, we'll close the public hearing and have discussion amongst ourselves.
I got a question.
Dee?
I got a question for Rick.
He's back there.
Seeing that Mr. Waitzer is basically extremely generous in taking over the road, and improvements for that and maintaining that 100% and putting in a sidewalk for the community. Is there, and a crosswalk across that road, what, I know that it doesn't warrant, this development doesn't warrant a signal light crosswalk. Can you speak on that?
Thank you. Rick Lohman, Traffic Engineering. We really can't put a crosswalk across Great Neck Road because of the speed limit. Federal guidelines, and I know there's a couple out there. I didn't put them there. I can tell you that federal guidelines tell you not to put crosswalks except at signalized intersections when the speed limit is greater than 40 miles an hour. Because I believe that because it less than 45 miles an hour, it puts the burden on the motor vehicle to yield to pedestrians already in the crosswalk, but at greater than 40 miles an hour, that's not the case. So federal guidelines caution you not to put a crosswalk unsignalized across a 45-mile-an-hour road. So
Okay.
that's where that comes in.
I've got a question. What do you think, in your professional opinion, will it take to eventually get a stoplight there? If 200 apartments go in, and let's say there are 400 people more that live in that neighborhood, and they want to get across Great Neck Road to the shops and to the things on the other side of the street, it seems like at some point there will be a warrant for a stoplight there, if nothing else but for safety, based on what Mr. Leach, if his statistics are correct, and I believe him, it sounds like it's a pretty dangerous intersection today.
Well, I have not seen the crash reports that Mr. Leach put together. What I do know is what our department or the city has put together, which is from 2013 to 2015. We do 3-year crash studies, and it showed that North Great Neck through that section was ranked 265th out of 289 segments as far as safety goes. So it's up there. It's one of the safest roads, arterial segments in the city. I'd be happy to look at his numbers or his crash reports, but that's the data that we have. There is a crash warrant. When you talk about traffic signals, there is a crash warrant. But the last time that intersection that I found was studied was back in 2010, where we had a request to study it for a signal, and it was not warranted by the crash warrant or the other warrants, the volume, the sheer number of vehicles. And traffic on Great Neck has not increased. It's stayed very constant from 2010 until now. So it would have to be some growth from the side streets. And in my opinion, I don't know that the 200 apartments is going to do it.
Okay, any other questions of Rick?
Just, and I don't want to keep harping on this traffic light. I guess I'm just trying to, and probably Mr. Leach, being the EMT for cities, probably, I figure he's probably up to date on those crashes. I mean, not that you're not, but since our traffic study is 2010, you said, on that. If that is in fact, it just seems a shame, since with our comp plan, we're always trying to do walkability and things like that in neighborhood. That's sort of where we are aiming
right.
To be. And here we have this really nice shopping center across the street, and we have all these residents on the other side of a 4-lane highway that's 45 miles an hour. It seems that there's got to be some sort of solution to get those residents across the street without everybody having to get in their car and sort of try to figure that out.
Right, or to go to Shore Drive, across there and come back.
Yeah, it just seems like,
well.
it just seems like that there's a easier way to get here from where we are. And I'm hoping that you can help us with that.
We haven't studied it since 2010, but we would study it again after this whole development is built out, whatever the complete build out, whatever the change is that's done, we would study it again. We certainly don't want to study it if nothing changes, but
right.
if something does change, we could study it again. The speed limit issue is not If you ask traffic engineering, we're gonna do a speed study out there, and if we see that the prevailing speed is 45 miles an hour, we're gonna recommend to keep the speed limit. The Shore Drive issue was a completely different animal, and that was not changed by traffic engineering. That was, changed by city council.
Well, if you think about having 500 or 600 boat slips over there, most everybody comes and goes to those boat slips by car. If you put 200 apartments over there, you're going to have 400 or more people that can walk and like to walk, and what Dee says is walkability and connectivity is something we're pushing all over the city. So pretty soon, you're going to have a good part of those 400 people wanting to walk across the street if there's a reason to go across the street. And right now, I think they're restaurants and they're gyms and workout places and things of that nature. So I would hope that you all would look past a stoplight, whether it's technically needed or not, but to be practical about it, because 400 or more people living in that neighborhood wanting to get across Great Neck Road, you don't want to do this after somebody's run over. I mean, that would be a stoplight, doesn't cost that much, and it's, pretty soon somebody might get hurt there. And it sounds like what Mr. Leach is saying, there've been a whole lot of people hurt there already. So anyway.
Well, we have made improvements to the intersection. A couple years ago, there was an issue with crashes. I think it was angle crashes, because the left turn lanes were kind of lined up, and you couldn't see around the cars that were already sitting to make a left turn in the other direction. So we cut into the median and we offset the left turn lanes. So if you look at it now, you'll see that we did make an improvement to
But
improve the safety.
those are cars on cars.
Right, and what Mr. Leach, I don't know that Mr. Leach provided you any statistics that said any pedestrians were involved in any of the crashes that we're talking about. So
Okay.
that's what we did that improvement for, was cars on cars. So
Any other?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Against my better judgment, I want to add a couple comments here. I actually worked on the Shore Drive improvement plan, and what the oversimplification is, City Council reduced the speed limit to 35, which allowed us to put pedestrian crossings at key intersections. So I will be glad to see how we could pursue that, because I'm looking at the map right here, and it would make total sense, but it cannot happen unless you reduce the speed limit. So I think it's worth considering, and we need to, we'll do what we can from the planning department to bring that forward.
Thank you. Dave Weiner.
Don't
I'm
you
sorry,
think
Dave
for a
Redmond.
minute that will make a difference?
Well,
Because I travel, hold on.
All right.
I travel on Shore Drive all the time, and I don't care what the sign says. The cars move faster than 35 miles per hour. We have gotten off on a whole bunch of topics here that are all off-site. And I think we ought to focus.
That's exactly true.
And we ought to focus on the application, which has to do with a parcel on the water that's, in past this neighborhood, and the shopping center across the street, to me, doesn't seem quite as relevant. Thank you, Mr. Lohman.
Yes,
You are absolutely
Mike.
correct.
Mike has a question for you, Rick.
Okay.
So what I'm understanding is theoretically, if you reduce the speed limit to 40, then it would meet the federal guidelines in terms of putting in a crosswalk.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm echo what Dee and Mr. Thornton have said about the desirability of the connectivity and the walkability, and just to put that on the record, I think it would be important to do, and has nothing to do with approval of this or disapproval of this project. I mean, it's a factor that we need to deal with for safety and of children and adults as well.
Okay.
And while I agree with what you're saying, if the advent of this causes that to be bettered or fixed or remedied, I think it's good dialogue to have now, because Barry's going to take time to look into lowering the speed limit, and that was one of Mr. Leach's concerns, is to lower the speed limit. Well, if that triggers a crosswalk, then at least some improvement to that intersection is going to happen as a result of this project, and that's the best we can hope for. Any other comments, questions of Mr. Lohman? Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan?
I have a question with regards to the dredging and the gentleman's comment about that being done over the preservation parcel. Can somebody sort of clear that up for me?
Sure. The dredge operations have been determined to be a public use, and that is permitted in that zoning district.
So going across that preserved piece of property is, I mean, I see on here where there's a city easement from the city-owned property, which that's where the dredging's coming from, the city-owned property into the water across that easement area. Am I correct?
It's moving from Long Creek through the easement to the north and then placed on the city property shown on the map.
So part of the easement is on the preservation piece and part of the easement is on the development parcel. Is that correct?
They're the dashed lines. They're somewhat difficult to see on the screen, but you do have them in your packet.
We've got them, yes. So it appears that the demarcation line between these two pieces runs right through the middle of that easement. And the city uses that easement on a regular, ongoing basis for dredging, is that correct?
From time to time, yes.
From time to time. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Well, we're out of questions. Anybody?
I have an-
I'm sorry.
So I just want to understand, there is no other option for a road or an ingress egress into this particular parcel? The only thing we have is that little tiny road on the side, Marina Shores Road. There's no other option for ingress egress?
There's no option without literally an act of Congress to amend the easement that the city has with the United States Army Corps of Engineers to provide an access through that city property on the east side of the site.
So a literal act of Congress?
Yes.
Literal. Thank you.
Would you like to approach the bench?
I would, Mr. Thornton, thank you.
Thank you, you're welcome. Just keep it
There are also some environmental situations back there where the easement is. And if the easement's for public use, you can get a waiver on the Chesapeake Bay Act. So in addition to federal law, you also have state and local law that would prevent it. So the answer is, from a practical standpoint, there is no other access.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Waiter. Do I have a motion? We are finished with our discussion. Mr. Redmond.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the application.
Is there a second? A second by Mrs. Oliver. Ms. Oliver.
Vote is open. By a vote of 8-0, the commission has approved the application of Water Boxes LLC.
Thank you. Is there any further business of the commission? If none, on behalf of my fellow commissioners, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today and thank the planning director and his staff for their excellent work in preparing today's agenda. Meeting adjourned.